Lavra Mitchell finished her shift at the animal clinic at 11:30 at night. She was tired. Her feet hurt. She had spent the last 3 hours helping a dog that had been hit by a car, and the dog had survived, which made her happy. But now all she wanted was to go home, take a hot shower, and sleep. She was 32 years old. She had brown hair that she kept in a ponytail and green eyes that her mother always said were too kind for her own good. She had worked as a veterinary nurse in Tulsa, Oklahoma for 9 years. She had saved hundreds of animals in that time. Cats, dogs, birds, snakes, and once a baby deer that someone had found on the side of the highway. Lavra loved her job. She loved taking care of creatures that could not take care of themselves. It was the only thing she had ever wanted to do. She walked out of the clinic and started toward home. It was a 15-minute walk through quiet streets. She had done it 1,000 times. She knew every crack in the sidewalk, every broken streetlight, every barking dog behind every fence. Tonight she decided to take the shortcut through the alley behind Morrison Street. It would save her 5 minutes, and her feet were really hurting. The alley was dark. The streetlight at the far end had been broken for months, and nobody had come to fix it. Lavra walked quickly, her keys in her hand, her eyes watching the shadows. That was when she heard the sound. It was a whimper, soft and scared, like a hurt animal. Lavra stopped walking. She listened. The sound came again from behind a large dumpster pressed against the brick wall. She should have kept walking. She knew that. It was late and the alley was dark and she was alone. But Lavra had never been able to walk away from a hurt animal. It was not in her nature. She moved toward the dumpster slowly. She crouched down and looked behind it. What she saw made her breath stop in her throat. It was not a dog. It was not a cat. It was not any animal she had ever seen in her life. The creature was about the size of a large dog, maybe 60 pounds. Its body was covered in dark scales that seemed to shift color when the dim light touched them. It had 4 eyes, 2 large ones in the front and 2 smaller ones on the sides of its head. The eyes were amber-colored and they glowed softly in the darkness. The creature had a long tail and short, powerful legs. One of those legs was bent at a bad angle, broken. The creature looked up at her and whimpered again. Lavra did not scream. She did not run. She had seen enough hurt animals to know fear when she saw it. This creature, whatever it was terrified. She knelt down slowly. She kept her hands where the creature could see them. "Hey there," she said softly. "It is okay. I am not going to hurt you." The creature blinked all 4 of its eyes at her. It did not move. Lavra had so many questions. What was this thing? Where did it come from? Was she dreaming? But those questions could wait. Right now there was a hurt animal in front of her, and that was all that mattered. She reached out her hand slowly, letting the creature smell her. Its nostrils flared. It made a small sound, almost like a purr. Then it pressed its head against her palm. Its scales were warm. Warmer than she expected. "Okay," Lavra whispered. "Okay, little one. I'm going to help you. I just need to figure out how to..." She heard footsteps behind her. Lavra turned around and saw 4 men walking toward her from the far end of the alley. They wore dark clothes and they moved with purpose. One of them carried a flashlight. Another carried something that looked like a metal pole with a loop on the end. The kind animal control used to catch dangerous animals. The 3rd and 4th men carried guns. "Step away from the creature," the man with the flashlight said. His voice was cold and hard. Lavra stood up slowly. Behind her, the creature whimpered and pressed itself further into the corner. "What do you want?" Lavra asked. "That thing behind you is worth more money than you will see in your entire life," the man said. "Collectors pay millions for rare specimens. And that right, there is the rarest specimen on the planet. So step away and nobody gets hurt." Lavra looked at the men. She looked at their guns. She looked at the metal pole designed to trap and restrain. Then she looked back at the creature. It was watching her with all 4 of its amber eyes. It was shaking. "No," Lavra said. The man with the flashlight laughed. "What?" "I said no." Lavra stepped backward, placing herself between the men and the creature. "This animal is hurt. It is scared, and I am not going to let you take it. The man stopped laughing. His face went hard. Lady, I do not think you understand the situation. We are not asking. And I am not moving, Lavara said. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her hands were shaking. She was terrified. But she had spent her whole life protecting animals that could not protect themselves. She was not going to stop now. The man with the flashlight nodded to one of the men with a gun. The shot came so fast that Lavra did not even hear it. She only felt it, a punch of fire in her left shoulder that spun her halfway around. She gasped and grabbed her shoulder. Blood ran between her fingers, but she did not fall. And she did not move. Last chance, the man said. Lavra said nothing. She just stood there, bleeding, her body blocking the creature behind her. The second shot hit her in the side. The third hit her in the chest. She fell to her knees, but she did not fall down. She braced one hand against the ground and kept her body between the guns and the creature. She could not breathe. Everything was pain. Blood was pooling beneath her. The fourth shot hit her in the stomach. The fifth hit her other shoulder. The sixth hit her leg. Lavra collapsed forward onto the ground. But she used the last of her strength to drag herself over the creature, covering it with her body. It whimpered beneath her, and she felt its warm scales against her skin. It is okay, she whispered. Her voice was barely a sound. I have got you. The seventh and eighth bullets hit her in the back. Lavra Mitchell stopped moving. In the distance, sirens began to wail. The men cursed and ran, disappearing into the night. The creature beneath Lavra did not move. It stayed pressed against her body, against the human who had chosen to die for it. Its amber eyes blinked in the darkness, watching, waiting. 17 minutes later, the paramedics arrived. They had to work carefully to move the woman without hurting the strange creature she was wrapped around. They were confused. They were scared. They had never seen anything like this, but they did their jobs. They put Lavra Mitchell in an ambulance and raced toward the hospital. She was not breathing on her own. Her heart had stopped twice. She had lost more blood than any human should be able to lose and survive. The doctors said it was impossible. They said she should be dead. They could not explain how she was still holding on, but Lavra Mitchell had always been stubborn about things like that. She survived, and 300 light years away, a message was sent to a ship the size of a small moon. The message contained footage from a security camera mounted on a building near the alley. It showed a small human female taking 8 bullets rather than abandon a creature she had never seen before. High Commander Verteth of the Verketh Dominion watched the footage 14 times. His son was alive because of this human. The High Commander stood from his throne and looked at his war. Council, set course for the third planet of the Sol system, he said. We have a debt to pay. Lavra Mitchell opened her eyes and saw white ceiling, white walls, white sheets, the steady beep of machines beside her, the smell of antiseptic and flowers. She was in a hospital. For a long moment she did not remember anything. She blinked at the ceiling and tried to understand where she was and why her body felt so heavy. Then the memories came flooding back like cold water. The alley, the creature, the men with guns, the bullets. Lavra tried to sit up, but pain exploded through her entire body. She gasped and fell back against the pillow. Lavra. Oh, thank God, Lavra. Her mother was there. Patricia Mitchell, 61 years old, with the same green eyes as her daughter, rushed to the bedside. She grabbed Laura's hand and held it tight. Tears were streaming down her face. Mom? Lavara whispered. Her throat was dry and her voice sounded strange. How long? 17 days, her mother said. You have been asleep for 17 days. The doctors said you might never wake up. They said the damage was too severe. But I knew you would come back. I knew it. 17 days. Lavra closed her eyes and tried to process that. Nearly 3 weeks of her life, gone. The creature, she said suddenly. Mom, there was a creature. In the alley? Is it okay? Did they find it? Her mother looked at her with an expression Lavra could not read. It was somewhere between amazement and fear. Lavra, honey, a lot has happened while you were asleep. A lot has changed. What do you mean? Is the creature okay? The creature is fine. More than fine. Her mother took a deep breath. Lavra, that thing you saved, it was not from Earth. Lavra stared at her mother. What? It came from space, Lavra. It is an alien. Its name is Cathari, and it is the son of some kind of alien leader, a commander of a whole empire out there in the stars. Her mother pointed toward the ceiling, toward the sky beyond. The whole world knows now. There are ships in orbit. Alien ships. They came for the creature. They came because of you. Lavra felt like the room was spinning. This had to be a dream. She was still unconscious, and this was some kind of fever dream caused by the medications. I do not understand, she said. Her mother picked up a remote and turned on the television mounted on the wall. Every channel was showing the same thing. News coverage of massive ships hovering in the sky. Military jets flying around them like tiny insects around whales. World leaders giving speeches. Scientists giving interviews. And in the corner of every screen, a photograph. Laura's photograph. Her hospital ID picture from the animal clinic. You are famous, Lavar, her mother said. The whole world knows what you did. That creature, Cathari, it belongs to a species called the Verkith. They are some kind of predator species. Very powerful. Very dangerous. They have conquered dozens of star systems. Nobody in the galaxy messes with them. Lavra watched the television in silence. She saw drawings of the Verkith based on descriptions from sources nobody could identify. They looked like the creature she had saved, but larger. Much larger. 8 feet tall or more. Covered in scales. 4 eyes. Built for hunting and killing. The Verkith found out what you did, her mother continued. They found out that a human woman, a nobody from Oklahoma, took 8 bullets to protect their leader's son. And they could not believe it. Why not? Because it does not make sense to them. You are not the same species. You had never seen Cathari before. You had no reason to protect him. But you did. You almost died for him. Lavra thought about the creature's eyes. The fear she had seen in them. The way it had pressed against her hand. He was scared, she said simply. He was hurt. What else was I supposed to do? Her mother laughed through her tears. That is exactly what makes you special, Lavra. Most people would have run. Most people would have saved themselves. But you stayed? Has anyone talked to them? The aliens? No, they have been waiting. The news says they refuse to speak to any of our governments. They say they are waiting for the one they call the Guardian. The one who saved their prince. Lavra felt a chill run down her spine. They mean me. Yes, honey. They mean you. Over the next several days, Lavra slowly recovered. The doctors were amazed at her progress. The bullets had done terrible damage, but somehow her body was healing faster than it should. Nobody could explain it. Meanwhile, the world outside was going crazy. The Verkith ships remained in orbit, silent and patient. Every government on Earth tried to contact them. Every scientist tried to analyze their technology. Every military prepared for the worst, but the Verkith did not attack. They did not invade. They just waited. Lavra learned more about the species that had come for her. The Verkith were apex predators evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. They had spread across the stars, conquering any species that threatened them. They were feared throughout the galaxy. No one challenged them, but for all their power, the Verkith had one weakness. Their children. Verkith did not have many offspring. Each child was precious beyond measure. To lose a cub was the greatest tragedy a Verkith could experience. Cathari was the only son of High Commander Vorteth, the supreme leader of their entire species. His transport pod had malfunctioned during a journey and crashed on Earth. The human traffickers who found him had planned to sell him on some kind of galactic black market, but Lavra had stopped them. Lavra had protected him when she had no reason to. She had taken bullets meant for an alien child, a predator cub. Something that looked nothing like her and came from a world she could not even imagine. The Verkith had a word for what she did. The word was Kethver. It meant one who guards with their life. It was the highest honor in their culture, reserved for only the greatest warriors and protectors. No non-Verkith had ever been called Keth single quotes VOR. Until now. On her 8th day awake, Laura's brother Danny came to visit. He was 28, with messy brown hair and the same stubborn jaw as his sister. He sat beside her bed and stared at her like she was a stranger. "Do you understand what is happening?" he asked. "There are aliens in orbit because of you." "Actual aliens?" "The whole planet is holding its breath. World leaders are fighting over who gets to talk to you first. There are people outside this hospital holding signs with your name on it." "I did not ask for any of this," Lavara said. "I know you did not. That is the crazy part. You were just being you. You saw something hurt and you helped it. You did not think about whether it was dangerous or whether it was from another planet. You just helped it. What else was I supposed to do?" Danny shook his head. "That is the question everyone is asking. What are humans supposed to do when we meet aliens? Are we supposed to fear them? Fight them? Study them?" He looked at his sister. "You answered that question, Lavara. You showed them what humans do. We protect the weak, even when it costs us everything." "I am not a hero, Danny. I am just a vet nurse." "Maybe, but the Verkith do not see it that way. And neither does the rest of the galaxy." That night, after her brother left, Lavara lay awake staring at the ceiling. She thought about the creature, Cathari, and wondered where he was now. She hoped he was safe. She hoped his leg had healed. She did not feel like a hero. She had just done what felt right, what anyone should do, but as she drifted off to sleep, she heard a sound from outside her window. A low hum like distant thunder, but steady and constant. She turned her head and looked outside. Through the glass, she could see lights in the night sky. Not stars. Something else. Something massive. The Verkith were still waiting, and soon they would wait no longer. Lavara closed her eyes and wondered what tomorrow would bring. She could not have imagined the answer. Lavara had been home for 3 days when the ships came down. The doctors had not wanted to release her. They said she needed more time to heal. But Lavara was stubborn, and she had spent enough time in hospital beds. She wanted to sleep in her own bed, in her own house, surrounded by her own things. Her mother had helped her settle in. Her small house on Maple Street looked the same as always. The yellow paint on the walls. The old furniture that her grandmother had left her. The photographs of animals she had helped over the years. Everything was normal, but nothing was normal anymore. There were news vans parked on her street. Reporters stood on the sidewalk talking into cameras, pointing at her house. Neighbors watched from their windows. Everyone wanted to see the woman who had saved the alien prince. Lavara stayed inside with the curtains closed. She did not want attention. She just wanted to rest and recover and maybe, eventually, go back to work at the animal clinic, but the universe had other plans. On the 3rd day, her phone rang. It was Danny. "Lavara, turn on the news right now." She grabbed the remote and turned on the television. Her blood went cold. The Verkith ships were moving. After weeks of waiting in orbit, they were finally descending. Not all of them, just one. A smaller vessel, maybe the size of a commercial airplane, was breaking away from the main fleet and dropping through the atmosphere. "Where is it going?" Lavara asked. "They have not said anything official," Danny replied, his voice shaking. "But the military is tracking its trajectory. Lavara, it is heading toward Tulsa." Laura's hand tightened on the phone. "What?" "It is heading toward Tulsa, toward you. Lavara, I think they are coming for you." The line went dead. Lavara looked at the television screen. The news showed the ship descending through clouds, escorted by dozens of fighter jets that looked tiny beside it. The ship was sleek and dark, with sharp angles that made it look like a predator in flight. Lavara stood up from the couch. She walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Outside, the reporters were running. Some were pointing at the sky. Others were getting into their vans and driving away. She looked up. The ship was directly above her neighborhood. It was descending slowly, and as it dropped lower, she could see the details. The dark metal hull that seemed to absorb light. The strange symbols etched into its surface. The weapons mounted on its wings. The ship kept descending until it was hovering just above the rooftops. Lavra watched as landing struts extended from its belly. It was looking for a place to land. It found one, her front lawn. The ship came down slowly and carefully, but there was no way to avoid the destruction. Her mother's rose bush, which Patricia had tended for 20 years, were crushed beneath the massive vessel. The grass was flattened. The ground shook with the impact. Lavra stood at her window, frozen, as the ship's engines powered down with a deep humming sound. Then the ramp opened. 7 figures emerged from the ship. They were Verkith? Lavra recognized them immediately from the drawings on the news, but the drawings had not prepared her for the reality. They were massive. Each one stood over 8 feet tall, with powerful scaled bodies encased in armor that looked like it was grown rather than built. Their 4 eyes glowed in the afternoon sun, red and amber and orange. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible for creatures their size. Like tigers walking upright, 6 of them took positions around the ship, standing guard. The 7th walked forward. He was the largest of them all. His armor was darker and more elaborate than the others, marked with symbols that Lavra guessed indicated his rank. His scales were a deep blue-black color that shifted to purple when the light hit them. His 4 eyes burned like furnaces. This was High Commander Verteth, the supreme leader of the Verkith Dominion. The father of the cub she had saved, and behind him, peeking around his armored leg, was a smaller figure. Ke single quotes Ari. The cub looked different than Lavra. Remembered, healthier, stronger. His leg was healed. His scales gleamed with health. But those 4 amber eyes were the same. And when they saw Lavra standing in the window, they lit up with recognition. Cathari made a sound that was somewhere between a bark and a cry. He pushed past his father and ran toward the house, his claws tearing up the already destroyed lawn. Lavra did not think. She just moved. She opened her front door and stepped outside. The cub reached her before she could take another step. He slammed into her legs with enough force to nearly knock her over, and then he was pressing against her, making that purring sound she remembered from the alley. His scales were warm against her hands. "Hey, little one," she said softly. "I am glad you are okay." Cathari looked up at her with all 4 eyes. He made a sound that might have been an attempt at human speech, but it came out as a jumble of clicks and growls. Lavra understood anyway. He was saying thank you. She looked up. High Commander Verteth was standing 5 feet away, watching this reunion with an expression she could not read on his alien face. Behind him, his warriors remained motionless, but their glowing eyes were fixed on her. Lavra straightened up. She was suddenly very aware of how small she was, how fragile, how weak compared to these creatures, but she did not feel afraid. She had been shot 8 times for this cub. What else could they do to her? "High Commander," she said. Her voice was steady. "Welcome to Earth." The alien leader studied her for a long moment. Then he reached up and touched something on his collar. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rumbling, but the words came through a translator in clear English. "Lavar Mitchell," he said, "I have watched the recording of what you did. I have watched it many times. My war council has watched it. My soldiers have watched it." He paused. "We did not believe it at first. We thought it must be some kind of deception. Humans are weak creatures, small, soft, no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. You are prey animals in a galaxy of predators." Lavra said nothing. She just listened. "But the recording does not lie," the High Commander continued. "You stood between armed threats and my son. You did not know him. You had never seen his kind before. You had no reason to protect him. But when they demanded you step aside, you refused. When they shot you, you did not fall. When they kept shooting, you covered him with your own body." His 4 eyes narrowed. "Why?" Lavra looked down at Cathari, who was still pressed against her legs. Then she looked back at his father. "Because he was scared," she said. "Because he was hurt." Because he was alone and he needed help. He is not of your species. That does not matter. He could have been dangerous. His kind are predators. He was a child. The High Commander was silent for a long moment. Around him, his warriors shifted. Lavra got the sense that they were as confused by her answers as their leader was. Then something happened that made Laura's breath catch. High Commander Verteth, Supreme Leader of the Verkith Dominion, Conqueror of Worlds, Commander of armies that had crushed civilizations, lowered himself to one knee before her. His warriors made sounds of shock. One of them stepped forward as if to stop him, then froze. The Verkith have never knelt to another species, the High Commander said. In 10,000 years of our history, we have never shown submission to anyone. But you have earned something from us that no other being has ever earned. He looked up at her with his burning eyes. You are Kethver, one who guards with their life. The highest honor our people can give. Lavra did not know what to say. She stood there with an alien cub pressed against her legs and an alien warrior kneeling before her, and she felt like she was dreaming. I did not do it for honor, she finally said. I did not do it for reward. I did it because it was right. I know, the High Commander said. That is why it matters. He rose to his feet. Lavra Mitchell, the Verkith Dominion, owes you a debt that can never truly be repaid. But we will try. Whatever you need, whatever your people need, we will provide it. Lavra looked at the massive alien warrior, at the ship on her lawn, at the world that had just changed forever. Okay, she said. But first, can someone please explain what happens now? The High Commander made a sound that might have been a laugh. Now, he said, everything changes. The weeks that followed the High Commander's arrival changed everything. Not just for Lavra Mitchell, not just for Tulsa, for the entire planet Earth. Within 3 days of the landing, Verkith medical teams had completely healed Laura's wounds. Their technology was beyond anything human doctors had ever seen. They used devices that looked like glowing wands to scan her body, identifying every bit of damage. Then they used other devices, machines that hummed with strange energy, to repair the damage at a cellular level. The bullets had torn through her organs, shattered her bones, destroyed tissue that human medicine would have struggled to repair over years of surgery. The Verkith fixed it all in 4 hours. When they were done, Lavra stood up from the table and felt stronger than she had ever felt in her life. There were no scars, no pain, nothing. This technology, one of the doctors at the nearby hospital said when he examined her afterward, it is centuries ahead of anything we have. Maybe more. The Verkith were not interested in keeping it to themselves. High Commander Verteth met with world leaders within a week of his arrival. The meetings took place in Geneva, in a conference room that suddenly felt very small when 7 8-foot aliens walked into it. Lavra was asked to attend. She sat at the table in a borrowed suit, feeling completely out of place, while the most powerful beings in 2 different worlds talked about the future. The Verkith do not give gifts, the High Commander explained through his translator. We do not believe in charity. It makes the receiver weak. But we do believe in paying debts, and the debt we owe to your species is very large. The world leaders exchanged glances. Lavra could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. What could they ask for? What would benefit their countries the most? We will offer technology exchanges, the High Commander continued. Medical technology, energy technology, materials science, transportation, things that will take your species 1,000 years to develop on your own, we will share freely. In exchange for what? Asked the American president. Nothing. This is payment of a debt, not a trade. Lavra Mitchell saved my son. Your species protected one of our young when you had no reason to. You have proven that humans are worthy of respect. He paused and looked around the table. The galaxy has been watching your species for a long time. Most civilizations dismissed you. Humans are weak, they said. Humans are primitive. Humans are prey. They expected you to destroy yourselves before you ever reached the stars. And now? asked the British Prime Minister. Now they are not so sure. The High Commander's 4 eyes moved to Lavara. The story of what she did has spread beyond your system. Other species have heard about the human female who took 8 bullets for a predator cub. They are asking questions they have never asked before. Lavara felt her face grow warm. She had not expected this. She had not wanted any of this. Over the following weeks, more ships arrived. Not Verkith ships? Different ones. Vessels from species Lavara had never heard of, representing civilizations from across the galaxy. The Mallory came first. They were a peaceful species, tall and slender, with pale skin and large dark eyes. They had spent thousands of years hiding from predator races like the Verkith, avoiding contact, staying silent and small. Now they wanted to meet the humans who had impressed the most fearsome predators in the galaxy. Their ambassador requested a meeting with Lavara personally. It took place in a small conference room at the United Nations, with dozens of government officials watching from behind one-way glass. The Mallory ambassador was named something that sounded like singing. Lavara could not pronounce it. So the ambassador suggested she simply call him Sol. He sat across from her at a simple table and studied her with his large eyes. "I have a question," he said through his own translator. "I have traveled very far to ask it." "Okay," Lavara said. "When you found the Verkith cub, you did not know what he was. You did not know if he was dangerous. You did not know if he was a friend or an enemy. Why did you protect him?" Lavara thought about the question. It was the same question the High Commander had asked. Everyone seemed to be asking it. "He was small," she finally said. "He was scared. He was hurt. Nothing else mattered." Sol was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a sound that the translator interpreted as profound sadness. "We have traveled the stars for 10,000 years, he said. "We have encountered thousands of species. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have watched predators devour prey and empires crush the weak. In all that time, we have learned one truth: the universe is cold, and survival belongs to those who are strongest." He leaned forward. "But you, Lavara Mitchell, have shown us something different. You are not strong. Your species is not powerful. You have no natural weapons, no advanced technology, no empire to protect you. You should be prey. You should be victims. But instead you protect. You sacrifice. You love what is not yours to love." Lavara did not know what to say. "The Mallory have hidden for so long because we believed the galaxy was full of predators," Sol continued. "We believed that only the strong could survive. But maybe we were wrong. Maybe there is another way." The meetings continued. More species came. The Krethval, who were fierce warriors themselves and wanted to understand how such a soft species could produce such courage. The Nethari, who were scientists and philosophers and wanted to study human psychology. The Volkesh, who were traders and wanted to establish commerce with a species the Verkith considered worthy. Each of them had the same questions. Each of them wanted to understand how humans could do what Lavara had done. She tried to explain. She talked about empathy, about compassion, about the human instinct to protect the vulnerable. She talked about parents who died for their children, strangers who rescued people from fires, ordinary people who did extraordinary things when someone needed help. "It is not special," she said in one interview. "It is not rare. Humans do this all the time. We just do not usually have an audience." But the galaxy was not convinced. To them, humans were a mystery, a contradiction, a species that was weak in body but strong in spirit, a species that would die for creatures not their own. The Verkith began using a new word when they talked about humans. The word was Kethvalium. It meant the ones who guard. It was a title of respect, applied to an entire species for the first time in their history. As the weeks turned into months, Laura's life continued to change. She became an unofficial ambassador for humanity, though she had no training and no desire for the job. She met with aliens, gave speeches, attended conferences. She smiled for cameras and answered the same questions over and over again. Through it all, Cathari stayed with her. The cub refused to be separated from the human who had saved him. His father allowed it, understanding something about bonds that went beyond species. One evening, Lavra sat on her porch and watched the sunset. Cathari was curled up beside her, his scales warm against her leg. The sky was full of stars, and now Lavra knew that there were people out there among them. People who were watching. People who were wondering. "I never wanted any of this," she said quietly. Cathari made a soft sound and pressed closer to her. "I just wanted to help animals. That is all I ever wanted. Just to help things that could not help themselves." She looked up at the stars. "But I guess the galaxy has a lot of things that need help." Cathari lifted his head and looked at her. His 4 amber eyes blinked slowly. Somewhere far away, in a conference room on a Verkith ship, the High Commander was making plans. He had watched humanity for months now. He had studied their history, their culture, their nature, and he had come to a decision: the galaxy needed protectors, not conquerors, not warriors who fought for power and glory, but guardians, beings who would stand between the weak and the strong, beings who would sacrifice themselves for others. The Verkith had always thought they were the greatest species in the galaxy, but maybe greatness was not about strength. Maybe it was about something else entirely. "High Commander." Verteth looked at the stars on his viewing screen and made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. He would ask Lavra Mitchell to help him build something new, something the universe had never seen before. 1 year had passed since the night in the alley. Lavra stood in her small kitchen on Maple Street, drinking coffee and looking at the photograph on her refrigerator. It showed her at the animal clinic, holding a kitten she had rescued from a storm drain. That photograph was from another life, a simpler life. A life before aliens and diplomacy and the weight of an entire galaxy watching her every move. There was a knock at the door. She opened it to find a Verkith messenger standing on her porch. The alien was smaller than the warriors she had met, probably young by their standards, but still towered over her at nearly 7 feet tall. "Lavra Mitchell," the messenger said through a translator. "High Commander Verteth requests your presence aboard his vessel. He wishes to discuss a matter of great importance." Lavra sighed. It had been a year of requests like this. Meetings, conferences, ceremonies. She was tired of all of it. But she had learned that refusing the High Commander was not really an option. "Let me get my coat," she said. The shuttle ride to orbit took 15 minutes. Lavra had done it enough times that it no longer scared her. She watched the Earth shrink below, the blue and green sphere that was her home, and wondered how she had ended up here. The High Commander's ship was enormous. Lavra had seen it from outside many times, but being inside still amazed her. The corridors were wide enough for Verkith to walk comfortably, which meant Lavra felt like a child in a building made for giants. Everything was dark metal and glowing lights and strange technology she did not understand. Cathari met her at the docking bay. He was nearly as tall as her now and still growing. His scales had darkened to the same blue-black as his father's. But when he saw Lavra, he made the same happy sound he had made as a cub and pressed his head against her shoulder. "Hello, little one," she said, though he was not so little anymore. "Do you know what this is about?" Cathari pulled back and looked at her. He had learned enough English over the past year to speak it, though his accent was strange and his grammar was sometimes wrong. "Father has plan," he said. "Big plan. He wants you to be part." "What kind of plan?" "You will see." He led her through the corridors to a large chamber near the center of the ship. The room was circular, with a domed ceiling that displayed a projection of stars. Hundreds of them, thousands maybe, each one representing a system somewhere in the galaxy. High Commander Verteth stood in the center of the room, his massive form outlined against the starlight. When Lavra entered, he turned to face her. "Lavra Mitchell," he said. "Thank you for coming. I did not feel like I had much choice." The High Commander made a sound that might have been amusement. "You always have a choice. That is what I have learned from your species." He gestured at the stars around them. "Do you know how many civilizations exist in this galaxy?" Lavra shook her head. Over 50,000? Some are ancient. Some are young. Some are powerful. Some are weak. And for most of history, the strong have dominated the weak. That is the way of the universe. That is what we believed. He walked toward her, his heavy footsteps echoing in the chamber. But you showed us something different, Lavra Mitchell. You showed us that strength is not just about power. It is about what you choose to protect. It is about standing between the helpless and those who would harm them. He stopped in front of her. I have spent this past year thinking about what you taught us. I have spoken with other species, with leaders and philosophers and warriors from across the galaxy, and I have decided to do something that the Verkith have never done before. Lavra felt her heart beat faster. What? I am creating a new force? A peacekeeping force that will operate across all systems, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We will defend refugees. We will guard civilians in war zones. We will stand between the strong and the weak, just as you stood between those men and my son. He paused. I want you to lead its human division. Lavra stared at him. What? The humans will be essential to this force. Your species has something that other species lack. You have the instinct to protect what is not yours. You have the courage to sacrifice for strangers. You have the compassion to see past species and see only beings in need. I am a vet nurse, Lavra said. I am not a soldier. I am not a leader. You are exactly what we need. You do not think like a soldier. You do not think about victory or defeat, about power or control. You think about who needs help. That is the mindset we need. Lavra turned and looked at the stars. So many of them. So many worlds. So many species she had never heard of, facing dangers she could not imagine. There are others who could do this, she said. Generals, politicians, people with training and experience. We do not want generals. We do not want politicians. We want guardians. And you, Lavra Mitchell, are the first true guardian humanity has ever produced. Kithari moved to stand beside her. He was almost her height now, and his amber eyes glowed with something that looked like hope. Come with us, he said. Help us. The galaxy is full of scared things. Small things, hurt things. They need someone to protect them. Lavra closed her eyes. She thought about her life back on Earth, her job at the clinic, her mother and brother, her friends. Everything familiar and comfortable and safe. Then she thought about the alley, the creature in the dark, the fear in its eyes. The moment when she had to choose between safety and doing what was right, she had made her choice then. Maybe she had made it her whole life. Okay, she said quietly. I will do it. High Commander Verteth placed his massive hand on her shoulder. The weight of it was enormous, but somehow comforting. The galaxy will remember this day, he said. The day humans joined the Guardians of the Accord. The day the universe changed forever. The ceremony took place 3 days later. Aboard a station orbiting Earth, representatives from over 100 species attended. Lavra stood on a platform surrounded by beings she could barely comprehend, creatures of every shape and size, and accepted a title she still did not feel she deserved. Her mother cried when she watched the broadcast. Danny called her crazy, then told her he was proud. The whole world watched as Lavra Mitchell, a veterinary nurse from Tulsa, Oklahoma, became the first human to hold a position of galactic authority. 2 weeks later, Lavra stood on the bridge of a Verkith diplomatic vessel, watching Earth grow smaller in the viewing window. Kithari stood beside her, pressed against her leg the way he had when he was small. Are you scared? He asked. Yes, Lavra admitted. Are you? No, you will be with me. I am never scared when you are with me. Lavra smiled and placed her hand on his warm, scaled head. Where are we going first? She asked. There is a planet in the outer systems. The Neth volume have been attacking refugee settlements? Millions of displaced beings with nowhere to go. Then that is where we go? The ship hummed around them. Through the viewing window, the stars began to stretch as the vessel prepared to jump to faster than light speed. Lavra thought about everything she was leaving behind. Her home, her family, her old life. She thought about the fear she had felt in that alley, the certainty that she was going to die, and the choice she had made anyway. She had made that choice again, and she would keep making it for as long as there were beings who needed protection. You know, she said quietly, I used to think I was just a vet nurse. I used to think my purpose was saving cats and dogs and injured deer. Cathari looked up at her. And now? Now, I know my purpose was always bigger than that. I just did not know it yet. The ship jumped. The stars streaked into lines of light, and Earth disappeared behind them. Lavra Mitchell, the guardian of the Accord, was heading into the unknown. She did not know what she would find out there. She did not know if she would succeed or fail. She did not know if she would ever see home again, but she knew one thing for certain. The galaxy was full of scared things, and hurt things, and small things that needed help. And as long as she was alive, she would be there for them, because that was what guardians did. That was what humans did. Behind her, through the viewing window, the last glimpse of Earth faded into the infinite dark, and somewhere out there among the stars, 1,000 species watched and waited to see what humanity would do next, that they would not be disappointed.